Combin on the air. Thanks for tuning into Instagram Growth Podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all of the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best Instagram marketer that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started. Hello there, and welcome to Instagram Growth Podcast Show. My name is Anne, and I'm glad to have you back this week for another great guest today. Successful marketer, entrepreneur, business owner, chief of police, university lecturer, proven leader, Jesus Eddie Campa. So welcome to my show, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure and honor to be part of your show. Thank you.
Thank you. So today we will discuss the importance of social media in business and entrepreneurship. And on a real life example of Jesus Eddie Campa, we will see how deep is the connection between social and business part of our life. But before we get down to business, let me and my listeners know you a bit more personally. So who is Jesus Eddie Campa in real life? Where are you from? How old are you now? And so on. What are your interests?
So I'm 47 years old now. I was born in El Paso, Texas, in the United States, which is a border town which borders Ciudad Mexico, Juarez. El Paso, Texas is we border Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, who's always in the news because it's one of the most violent cities in the world.
Yeah.
And so we're the border. And when I grew up, we were a small town. I grew up to a single parent, my mother, who she was, my dad, I grew up without a father. He left me when I was 2 years old. I was actually raised by my grandmother. My mom worked 2 or 3 jobs to be able to keep a roof over our head and put food in our mouth. So I never really saw my mom. I was raised by my grandmother. I always tell people this joke that says, hey, look, yes, I'm a guy, but don't ever ask me to do guy things. Don't ask me to build anything because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to fix a car. But if you need me to sew something or cook something or iron, I'm really good at it because that's what my grandmother taught me.
Yeah. Okay.
So I grew up poor. We grew up poor, and I learned my work ethic from my mom, and I never wanted to be poor. So, but the fact that my mom was always working, she kind of gave me that inspiration to work hard just like she did, so I could make sure my family would always have food and stuff like that, and be able to go out and enjoy the things in life. Married, have 3 kids. I've got a long list of experiences. I've done just about everything in 47 years.
Yeah, I think so.
And we're just getting started.
Yeah, and at the beginning, I mentioned that you have lots of emplois, so to speak. You are a businessman, speaker, lecturer, chief of police, so truly all-round man. And can you tell me who are these people who have been the most influential to you as a person? Or maybe you have some books or films that have left the most influence on who you are now.
Absolutely. So the most influential person in my life, and I don't really tell her that, is my mom. My mom, she had to be dad, mom, everything to me, provider, and everything that I am today, I owe it to her, because if she hadn't gone through her struggles, I don't think I would have been able to survive the struggles that I've gone through. But seeing her suffer and the things that she had to go through prepared me to be the person that I am and deal with. Sometimes, in life, we can't always be winners. Sometimes we fail and we have to know how to get up. So One of my favorite films is Rocky, Sylvester Stallone.
Very cool film.
Very awesome film. Some of my favorite books. I'm currently reading Call Sign Chaos by Jim Mattis, General Mattis. If anybody out there who is trying to find out how to create a successful business, you should really read Inside the Magic Kingdom, which tells you about how Disney, the corporation, became what it is today. And finally, The Art of War for Managers by Sun Tzu. Those are some of the most inspirational books that I've gotten a lot of help and knowledge from in everything that I've done.
Yeah, cool. And do you read every day or every week?
I try to. So I'm currently I'm currently working on getting my PhD. So I'm hoping to become Dr. Campa here in the next year or two. So that requires a lot of reading. So whether I want to read or not, I have no choice.
Yeah.
Lately, I'm having to read things that I have to read, not things that I want to read. So I do travel a lot. So right now, when I'm on the airplane and don't have access to a computer, that's when I'm reading that book by General Mattis called Sign Chaos.
Yeah, by the way, good luck with your PhD.
Thank you. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. And what is your occupation by now? So, where do you work now? What are duties and so on?
So right now, my main job is I am the executive director for the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training, which is basically the licensing organization that licenses all police officers in the state of Oklahoma. So, for any occupation in law enforcement, if you want to be a police officer, an investigator, a detective, you have to go through my agency to get your license. So you have to go through our academy, our training academy. We train you how to be a police officer. So I'm the executive director for the state of Oklahoma for what we call CLEAT. That's my real job. That's what I do. That's what I do Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, or I wish it was 8 to 5. And then I'm a lecturer and a university professor for the University of Texas at El Paso and East Central College. So I teach criminal justice and homeland security courses. And then I'm a speaker. So I've been speaking for the last 3 years. I travel the country. I've done some keynote speaking on leadership in businesses and turning things around. And one of the things that I do in my lectures is I talk about how using social media to defend your brand and how important that is. So I'm also a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I said, I have my speaking business, but I also own a security company in El Paso. And it's I don't know how I do it in 24 hours, but I get it all done.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it seems that you have more than 24 hours every day.
Sometimes it feels that way. The bad thing about that is I lose track of time. So sometimes people, for instance, today I thought today was Thursday. I was running around at work thinking, oh my God, I missed the interview. I forgot about the podcast. It's Thursday. I was like, it's not Thursday, it's Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm like, oh man. I called, I had to do payroll. I called in payroll earlier. They're like, hey, you don't usually call payroll in on a Wednesday. And I'm like, Wednesday? I thought it was Friday. Earlier, I'm like, all right, cool. So sometimes I get lost because
Yeah.
I get ahead, so I get lost and I lose track of time. But time is precious, and you got to take advantage of all the time you have.
Yeah, okay. And how did you get started with these police duties? So did you always work in that sphere, in one and the same sphere, or you tried several?
No, so I've been a police officer for 27 years now. I started my career in El Paso, Texas. As I mentioned, I grew up with my mom and my grandmother, so I never had a male role model around me. So one of the persons that I kind of look up to, well, not that I do look up to, is my uncle, and he was a police officer. And I was always the underdog of the family because my family, my mom's brothers and sisters, they were all married and they had kids and they were going to good schools and they had money and they had big dreams for their kids. And since I was the poor little Mexican kid without a dad, I wasn't supposed to be anything. So everybody always thought that, hey, you know what? As long as he stays out of prison, doesn't join a gang, and he has a good job at McDonald's, we'll be happy for Eddie. And I'm like, wow, really? Like, thanks a lot. I mean, that's all I get. It's like, okay. So I looked up at my uncle as my role model, and he was a police officer. So I knew that I had to start working. So I joined the I joined the sheriff's office, and I worked my way up. I spent 20 years with the El Paso Sheriff's Office, retired at 20 years. Then I became the chief of police at the Ector County Independent School District in Odessa, Texas. I spent a year there, went to Marshall, Texas, was the chief of police there for 3 years. Marshall, Texas is a very hard place for a Latino like myself to be accepted. There was a lot of racial issues. So basically, primarily, it's a white community and a black community, and the racial tension is there. So I always make a joke. When they hired me, they couldn't hire another white guy because he had caused some problems, and the African Americans were mad, and they were never going to hire an African American as a chief of police. So they settled for this little caramel Mexican guy who's not white and he's not black. He's like brown in between. So hire that
Golden
guy.
middle.
Yes, so perfect middle. You fix it, you know. And while we did great things with the community, and one of the biggest tools that I had, and this is one of the things that I always tell police chiefs when I talk to them, is use social media. That's how we were able to turn the perception that the community had of the police department. We were able to turn it around using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and our website, because we were putting out so much information. Everything we did, we were posting it quickly and getting it up there, that people started saying, hey, like they felt like they were part of us because they knew everything we were doing and we weren't hiding anything. So I spent 3 years doing that. And while I changed the community and the community accepted me and I was accepted by the community, the police officers, it's very hard to change a culture, and they didn't want to change. And it kind of like, in one of the Rocky movies where, we're all the same,
Yeah.
but we're all different. But the police department didn't want to see that. So after 3 years, my contract was up. I went home, started my security company. I didn't have anything else to do. And then I applied for the job that I'm at right now as the executive director. Didn't think I was going to get the job. And then I got the job and I said, oh, okay.
Ah.
So then I moved to Oklahoma. So yes, I've always been in the police world, but I've always done millions of things outside of it.
Yeah, okay. All-round man, yep.
Well, thank you. I like that.
And what about Jesus Eddie Campa, a band? How did you started that?
So my full name is Jesus Eduardo Campa, but everybody has always called me Eddie. For some strange reason, Jesus translates to Chewy. I don't know how that fit. I don't know how they come up with that, but I don't like the way Chewy sounds, so I don't like being called Chewy. So when people when people call me Chewy, I know they're from my days in high school because that's what they used to call me. So Jesus, I couldn't go by Jesus because there was too many Jesuses in the Mexican community. Everybody's
really?
a Jesus, yes. So I was like, I'll just go by Eddie. Well, when I joined the sheriff's office, they call us by our last name. So it's Campa, Deputy Campa, Chief Campa, Director Campa. So you kind of lose that. So when I went to Marshall, and this is how funny it is, this is where it started. I got to Marshall, and the African Americans would call me Jesus. And I'm like, oh, no, don't call me Jesus. Not because you're offending me, you're offending the big guy upstairs. I mean, he's going to get mad and say, I'm not that guy. So I said, no, you know what? Just call me Eddie. Just call me Eddie. And they're like, okay, Eddie. Well, then the Hispanic community of my city got upset because they're like, well, you're Latino, you're Mexican. Why do you want to be Eddie? Why can't we call you Jesus? And I'm like, okay, well, then call me Jesus. And then the other people in law enforcement, it was always Chief Campa. So sometimes we would go to places and people would be talking. Yeah, did you see Eddie? Who? Oh, Chief Campa. Oh, you mean Jesus? So I was like, you know what? Just to make everybody happy, just call me. You can call me whatever you want. Jesus, Eddie, or Campa. So it just became Jesus Eddie Campa became my brand. I'm just Jesus Eddie Campa. That way everybody knows, oh, Jesus Campa, oh, we know him. Oh, Eddie Campa, we know him. Campa, oh, we know him. And that's the brand.
Yeah, I think that's just cool and very interesting story. And how close are your duties to marketing and social media marketing now?
So that's an interesting question because a lot of people, especially in law enforcement, we don't like social media. We look at social media as a bad thing. We look at the media reporters as a bad thing. But like I said, if you know how to work social media, you can make it very successful. So one of the things that a lot of police departments do is something happens in the community And the first thing everybody does is they reach for their cell phone and they start typing on Facebook and on Instagram and telling everybody what's going on, but they're telling their version, what they see. So if we as the police department or the police chief or whoever you are, if you get to the scene and you know something's happening and you put it out there first, and you're the first one who puts it out there, now the truth is out there. So people can say, yeah, well, I saw the accident and it was, and this happened, or this person killed this person. And you're like, oh, that's not what the police page said. They said that this happened. And you got the pictures and you can show what's legal that you can show, right? So if you're putting the information out there first, you're beating the people to the punch and you get your side of the story out first. So it's very important.
And do you have kind of censorship of what to share?
Well, yeah, because I mean, sometimes there's certain, like, you go to a shooting or you go to a bad accident or something, we're not gonna show you those pictures. We're basically gonna tell you we're investigating a shooting. We might show you a general area of where we're at. And stuff like that. But a lot of the times, some people will actually share those images, which, Instagram or Facebook will take those pictures down for us. But I think it's very important in everything that social media is. It's today's television. It's today's radio. It's today's newspaper. Nobody reads newspapers. Nobody. Yeah. I have a television here. I haven't turned that television on in almost 6 weeks. I'm like,
same story.
So I think it's very closely related. It's a very important piece in our business. Absolutely.
Okay. And was it always like that easy, or it was very hard to market at the beginning?
So trying to get police officers or police departments to use social media is very hard. It's very hard because we don't like sharing information. The police, we're secret. We're secret. You don't need to know that. It's our business. You don't need to know that. So when you twist it and you're giving people information, everyone's like, how dare you tell people what we're doing? They can see us. Like, what do you mean? We're not hiding somewhere. They can see us, and they're going to put their version of what they see. So let me get my version of the truth. That way I can sit here and tell you, like, no, this happened at this time, and it's right here on our feed. And a lot of the times, social media and Facebook, because a lot of people do take pictures of things that happen. Sometimes we actually go through people, like, this friend posted this. Hey, that's a picture that we didn't know happened. It's got information for us and we can use it. So we have to know how to work it to our advantage. But even to this day, it's very hard to try to convince police officers or police chiefs and things like that to use social media. I mean, even businesses today, like, most of my business for my security company and a lot of the business that I do for my speaking that I do, 2 separate businesses, are marketed on social media. And that's where all my business comes from. I don't have a billboard. I don't have a TV commercial. I put up a quick blurb on Facebook, a quick Instagram with my phone number information, swipe up, do this. You just do it. You get the information, direct you to the website. Easy. It's all about convenience. So it's been very successful.
Yeah, okay. And I also wanted to ask you, is that a common practice for your city or for your region for police to share all these things, or it is only your department who does it?
So a lot of the more progressive departments do it. So in Texas, we have very big progressive departments, so there's a lot of that. Now that I'm in the state of Oklahoma, which is where I'm at, it's very rural communities, a lot of little towns made up of, and they don't like to share that information. So they kind of like, they're like, oh, this is what I've been told. Oh, here comes that Texas kid who thinks he knows it all. He's going to put everything on Facebook. He's going to put it all on Instagram. And it's like, well, yes, because that's how you stop misinformation from going out, because you put out your version and then somebody puts out their version, and you're kind of contradicting. It gives you an opportunity to defend yourself, and we'll talk about how I have to defend my brand a little bit later, I think. So it's just very interesting.
Okay, yeah. And for me, as for the citizen, it would be cool if my police department in my city share some of their experience or some of these incidents that are happening, because it's really I think, important for people who live in the city to understand what is going on from the police side of you. Okay. So now the world is full of opportunities for startups, for businesses, and it is obviously much easier for them to get promoted, to get famous, to reach the new people. And all of these social media networks like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram are perfect places to find target audience that is highly likely to like your service, to like your brand, to like your business, to like your initiative. But what about some times in the past, so to say? What about such a veteran as MySpace, for example? Did you have an account on MySpace?
I did. MySpace was my favorite. Actually, that was my favorite social media. I'm making myself sound very old because MySpace came around in 2003,
Yeah.
and it was the when I first got my account, I was so excited because you could do all these really cool things. And what I liked about MySpace is it was so easy. I mean, things are easy today, but MySpace was easy. I mean, you could actually take a song, which now if you use it, you have to pay royalties or you have to buy the use of the song. Back then it was free. You'd make a video, you could attach the song to it. Nobody would take it down or anything like that. And you were one of the cool kids if you had a MySpace account, because not everybody had computers and smartphones were not around yet. So you literally had to go to your desktop or your laptop and log in. But that was where I got my first view with social media. And at that time, while I was still a cop, I also had a professional. I used to be a professional wrestler.
Oh.
Yeah, surprise, right? And I had a wrestling company that was called the Alliance of Lucha Libre Wrestling Association, and we were out of El Paso, Texas, and we would travel on the weekends, and on my days off, we would go wrestle places. And MySpace is where we let everybody know where we were going. So we would have shows that we were doing, and we would tell everybody, if you don't have a MySpace account, create one so you can follow us. And that's how people started finding out about us. And just, I mean, while we were in El Paso, somebody from Las Cruces, New Mexico sends, hey, how do we get you guys to come to Las Cruces? Well, easy. We need this, and communication. And that's how networking started. And everybody had a MySpace account. It was just awesome. Unfortunately, MySpace, I would still love to have a MySpace account. But unfortunately,
but I think it's a bit
it didn't evolve.
Out of date. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't evolve. So.
Yeah. And did you at this time have a well thought strategy, or did you just use any opportunity to promote yourself, to try something new as social media?
I was a cop. I had no idea how to. I'm like, wow. Now, 20 somewhat years later, now I know that I'm actually a businessman, not really a cop. But back then, I just thought I was a cop. And I'm like, when we started the business, we started off as a joke because a friend of mine had just bought a ballroom, and he said, hey, you know what? I have this building and it's a ballroom for dances and stuff, but nobody's renting it. What do we do? I said as a joke, I looked at him, I said, hey, let's do wrestling. And he's like, wrestling? How do you do that? I said, I don't know. I just threw that out. And he goes, I like that idea. Let's do it, because everybody likes wrestling in El Paso. And I'm like, okay. So I called a friend who was a wrestler, and I said, hey, dude, I want to create a wrestling show just one time. How do I do that? So we set it up. We had a wrestling show. We had 800 people show up to this show. Oh. First time. Just handing out flyers, the original social media, handing out flyers.
Yeah, flyers.
And we had 800 people show up, and we thought it was a one-time thing. And everybody at the end of the show was asking, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I'm like, the next one? And I go into a panic, and I'm like, the next one? I'm like, next Sunday. And I'm like, really? I'm like, no, not next Sunday. Well, next thing you know, it was every Sunday we were doing wrestling. And then that's when we created MySpace, and we were trying to find ways to promote it. But we were so popular that we didn't really need to promote it, because people were just coming because we were the only game in town. Then we got some competition, and then when we wanted to start traveling, that's when MySpace came in, and we started kind of putting a strategy together, but we really didn't know what the heck we were doing.
Okay. So not this strategy, like tactics, something testing. No. Okay. And what is the difference between then MySpace and, for example, Instagram? What is easier for you to make presence on MySpace or now on Instagram?
Well, back then, I mean, there was no such thing as Instagram back then, so MySpace was all you had, so that was a lot easier to do. Now, I prefer Instagram over Facebook because don't think you get all the negativity that you get on Facebook on Instagram. I think Instagram is a little more friendlier. It lets you express yourself a little bit more. Yes, and I think it's being run and governed the way social media was intended to be, just to get things out there and let people share their lives. Facebook, honestly, to me, and I'm not trying to put anybody down, or if anybody from Facebook is listening to this, I'm sorry, but Facebook has really become a trash can. It says a lot of, I mean, it's a lot of negativity on there, and so that's what I like. LinkedIn, it's very professional. You can carry your brand. While they're starting to do advertising now, but it's very clean. And Instagram is kind of the same way. I mean, you can still find a lot of things, but a lot of the negativity that's found on Facebook's out there. But I really enjoy how easy Instagram makes their platform. So that's really good. I mean, anybody can do it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And what are your marketing efforts today? So what role does social media marketing play in your today's life, in your career? So how much time are you ready to give to social media?
So luckily, for my real job, I have somebody that actually runs our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and that's his job. I mean, so as far as that goes, that's what he gets to do all day. He gets to play on social media. He runs around taking pictures and posting information. So I have a person that does that. For my speaking business, that's, since I'm barely doing that, I'm the one who's doing all of that. So I've got a Facebook account, Twitter account, LinkedIn account, and Instagram, where I'm posting pictures of me speaking somewhere, or events that I'm attending, or directing you to my webpage so you can book me as a speaker, directing you to different things, and that's being done by me. Usually, I do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where I post the majority of my things. I'm being told that I need to increase that, especially on Twitter. You have to basically kind of post like 50 tweets a day. I don't have time to do 50 tweets a day to get a presence, but I'm not going to do that. My security company in El Paso, we have somebody else that runs that for us. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and that's the majority of our business comes from there. And basically, we post ads. We do ads on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So that's how we get most of our business. So that's our marketing strategy. But for my brand, the Jesus Eddie Campa brand, I'm the one doing all the marketing on it and all the Instagram tools. The more platforms that you have, and it makes it so easy now because you can tie all the platforms together, where you post on one, they post everywhere. So that has made life a lot easier. It's just one thing to remember: always check your spelling before you hit send.
Yes, it's a cool tip, really cool tip. I give it to the attendees of my webinars very often, because they often think about things like, hashtags, locations, values, something like that. And when I say just check your spelling, they say, true, 100% true.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do sometimes, I since I'm bilingual, I speak English and Spanish. I'll put it in Spanish, and while I'm not that, my Spanish, I can speak it very well. I can't write it very well, and sometimes I put down some pretty interesting things, and my wife will call me. She'll say, "Can you fix the spelling on this? Because basically what you're saying is this," and I'm like, "Oh, that's not right." So yeah, so be careful with that.
Yeah, okay. So if we started to talk about failures in speaking, so what was your biggest failure during your job, during all your experience of work? So, and what did you learn from that?
So my biggest failure, honestly, is going to be the time, which is funny because my biggest failure is also my biggest success story.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, wow. So it was my time in Marshall, Texas, as the chief of police, where I was brought in to do a job. I was brought in to change the culture, change the community, change the way people looked at the police. And when I got there, it was very hard to change the culture because, I mean, and I'm not being that racist guy or being racial or anything like that. I'm just telling you what happened to me. And the true story is that, you had a community that was separated between Caucasians and African Americans. They brought in this golden caramel guy to fix things. And, this group here, if you weren't white or Caucasian, wouldn't accept anybody else. But now you've got this little brown guy telling all these white people what to do. And it's like, I'm not going to listen to you, so it was a little hard. But then the community, when I went out to the community, they're like, hey, here's this guy who's listening to us, who's actually taking us into consideration. We created focal groups. We created a program called No Colors, No Labels, which was a program designed to remove the preconceived notion that the police were racially motivated. We brought people together in these big conferences where we would basically say, like, today we're going to learn about the Hispanic culture, the Mexican culture. We would bring in the music, the food, feed everybody, talk about why do Mexicans eat beans? Why does everybody make fun of the beans? Well, Mexicans, that's where they got their protein from, was from eating beans, because they couldn't kill the cow, because then they wouldn't have milk and things like that. So then we did the African Americans, the Asians, and we did all of this stuff. And when the community started changing, we lowered the crime rate by 20%. We had a fully staffed department. Things were going really great, and the community accepted it. So that was my biggest success, because I was able to change the viewpoint of a culture that had been used to being put down by the police. Yeah. But then my biggest failure was I couldn't change the police, which were the good guys. I couldn't change them. So when I left, the community threw me this humongous party. I mean, they were so sad to see me leave, and they threw me this huge party, and all the citizens were there and stuff like that. But not one. Well, I shouldn't say that. I can count the number of police officers that showed up in one hand, and I think that was like 3 of them. And I was kind of like, what did I do wrong? Like, we had all these great things going. Crime was down. We were fully staffed. The community liked us. We had all these programs going on. We succeeded. But then the police hates me, and I'm their boss, and they hate me, and they can't, and then they're so happy that I'm gone. So I couldn't see that. So it's bothered me for a long time. I'm over it now. But I think that was my biggest success and my biggest failure.
And I think the biggest challenge.
It was one of the biggest challenges that I've ever had, trying to understand how something that's working is not working. Like, yeah. How does it work and how does it not work at the same time? So that was really hard.
Yeah, actually, when you said that your biggest failure is actually your biggest success in life, this is what we discussed yesterday with one of my friends, with a recognition expert, and we were talking about failure, and she said that people should even strive for failure sometimes, because when you fail, you learn something. It's like a lesson, and the more you learn, the more you study, the cleverer you become, the more experience you get, and so you only get higher than you were before. Yeah.
Well, every failure, you have to learn from it. And I always laugh when people say, I've never failed at anything in life, and look at me. And I'm like, you're lying. Because you would not be successful without any failures, because you're successful because you took a chance and you tried something. It doesn't mean it worked. Maybe you don't look at it as a failure, but you see, failing to me, I have failed so much at so many things. I failed at businesses. I failed at businesses. I failed at my first marriage. I was a terrible husband. If you ask the police and marshal, I was a terrible leader. I
can't believe it now.
I didn't like school. I didn't like this, but it's taught me how to be who I am today. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm not poor. I've got money in the bank. I've got a house. I've got family. I've got kids. I've got an education. I've got businesses. I've got a career. I got a brand. I'm speaking. I'm doing what I want to do, not what I have to do, what I want to do. And had I not failed in those things, I would have never learned, okay, so I got to adjust this, and I got to fix this, and I got to adjust this. And now I know that changing culture is a long-term platform. It's not something that happens like this, no matter how bad you
Yes.
want it.
Yes. Absolutely agree with you here. And what advice would you give someone who wants to pursue a career similar to yours? Or what advice would you give to yourself back to the beginning of your career?
So the first thing, and it's funny that you say that, because I have a 21-year-old son who says, he's always wanted to be just like dad, and I'm like, God, why? I'm like, no, be anybody you want, just don't be me. Come on, learn from everything I've done wrong. And so he wants to be a cop, and he's actually started his career as a police officer. He's now a police officer, and I begged and pleaded with him for many years, please, son, don't do this. Some of the things that I have seen, some of the things that I've done, I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I've been punched in the face, I've been in car chases and all that stuff. And people think it's exciting and stuff like that, but the world has changed now. The world is, and not to sound silly or anything like that, the world is a really bad place now. It really is. I mean, it's very anti-police. A lot of people don't like the police, even though we really are the good guys. We are really we really are.
And you are the example.
And I like to think that. I like to think that we are really good people, but sometimes people don't look at it that way. So I've tried to talk him out of it. So I have said, because he always tells me, "Well, yeah, Daddy, if you know now what you knew, if you knew then what you know now, would you still be a cop?" And I said, "Are you crazy? Hell no. No way in hell. I'd go to medical school and be a doctor. I mean, that's where the money's at. I mean." The medical field is exploding everywhere. I mean, you got the coronavirus going on. You've got all these scientists trying to find a cure, and surgical masks are like $30 for one mask. I'm like, wow, I'm in the wrong business. So if I could go back, I would definitely pursue business first. Because I'm really good at it, something that I've learned. I didn't learn that the easy way. I mean, I lost a lot of money doing things that I thought were going to work, and I was like, that didn't work. I'm like, shoot. But definitely, if anybody wanted to do anything that I've done, I would definitely say just stay out of law enforcement, because there's no money. It's not a job that anybody thanks you for. And you know what? Even nowadays, it's funny, because we always tell people, stay in school, go to school. And while school is important, this little piece of paper doesn't mean you're the smartest guy in the world, because some of the biggest, more successful people that I know are doing trades. People that know how to weld, people that know how to build things, and things that have no desire to have an education. But I would definitely pick up a skill. Like I told you, I don't know how to work on a car or anything like that. So I would definitely do totally different, but it would be in business or in medical, and tell somebody just stay out of law enforcement. It's hard.
Yeah. And I have a younger sister. She's 10 years younger than me. And my parents still keep on telling her that you need to study, you need to do this, you need to read that book, you need to go to school, you need to go to that courses, you need to go to university and study. But what I'm saying to my sister is that do what you want, find what you really like, and you just need to find your passion, and then people will see the fire in your eyes. They will feel that energy from you that you are doing what you like, and you have no other way. Like you cannot be not successful if you're really doing what you like. So yes, it may be by slow pace, but in the end, you will be happy and you will have everything you want just by doing what you really want and what you really can do.
Yes, last Friday, I got the opportunity to speak to 800 people, and everyone. I got to speak to 800 different law enforcement agents in the nation, and I got to speak to them, and I actually got paid to do it. And everyone's like, "Wow, Eddie, when you're at the office, you're very business-like. You're very different." Then we put that microphone in your hand, and you had everybody laughing and talking, and the things you say and the things that you do, you really like doing that. And I'm like, I do. I like talking. I like letting people know my side of the story and my versions of the way life is and stuff like that. And finally, I have the opportunity to do something that I like. But if you look back, I told you I was working on a PhD. Well, my PhD is in criminal justice. My master's is in criminal justice. My bachelor's is in criminal justice. And I'm like, God, I really hate criminal justice. Like, but when I got my bachelor's, it only made sense to get my master's in criminal justice. Well, that's all I know. I've been a cop for 27 years. So when I get my PhD, what am I going to do? Go to education or the medical field? I don't know anything about that. So it's kind of like, damn, I spent all this time in school on something that I love to do because I've been doing it, obviously, but that's all I know how to do until I realize that there's other things I know how to do. So,
Yeah.
And finally, I'm happy. So
this is actually the most important thing. And I really can feel your energy. I really feel it that when you are talking about what you're doing, about your businesses, about your occupation, about your life, you're really enjoying that. You're really enjoying what you do. Yeah.
I am finally happy. So that's really good. That's the most important thing, because I'll tell you what, I've had money and been miserable. I've been poor and been miserable. Now I'm doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how I want to do it. And I'm the happiest I've ever been. And so is my family. So that's good.
Yeah. How can my listeners connect with you? Where can they find you online?
So online, you can use the three names, Jesus Eddie Campa.com. That's JesusEddiecampa.com, Jesus Eddie Campa. And there you'll see my story. You'll see that another thing we left out in the story, you'll see the first episode of my my animation series. We're building an animation series based on my life during my time in Marshall. So you'll see what I look like as a cartoon. Animated guy. It's pretty cool. We've got the first season done. We've got 8 episodes.
Cool.
April the second week of April, we will be in Austin, Texas, at our first film festival, trying to get some big investor to sell it to Netflix or Hulu or one of the streaming devices, YouTube, and start a series. It's called I Am El Jefe. You can also go to iameljefe.com and see 2 mini episodes of what we've done. Life is great. I'm really excited. Like I said, I've got my first book coming out in winter. I've got the animation series. We got the security company, the speaking business, my career, working on PhD. I mean, it's just wonderful, So please stop by at JesusEddieCampa.com. It's the same thing for my Instagram, Jesus Eddie Campa at Instagram, Jesus Eddie Campa at Twitter, Jesus Eddie Campa website, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all those places.
Yeah, I will also put all the links needed to the description to this episode so that the audience could find you easier, okay?
Awesome. Appreciate that.
And what message do you want to leave my listeners with today?
Well, I think the most important thing that I want to leave your listeners is with, because everybody always tells me or asks me, like, well, who are you? Like, you're all of these people. And it's like, and it's kind of funny because sometimes I've had actually people say, you're lying. There's no way that you're doing that. Okay, well, for instance, you're not a professor at UTEP. Okay, go to utep.edu and you'll see my picture in the criminal justice faculty, and I'll be there. And they're like, oh, God, you're a professor. Yeah. You're a cop. You were a wrestler? You weren't a wrestler? Okay, go to my YouTube channel. You'll see me wrestling in my company. I mean, so those are the great things about social media, is that you can always, you got proof, right? But the most important thing is don't ever settle. You always have to reinvent yourself. And what I mean by reinventing yourself is you always have to keep improving. I've known a lot of police officers and a lot of teachers, a lot of doctors, a lot of everybody that they think that they're only good at one thing, and it happens in the police world a lot. I've been a cop for 27 years. That's all you know how to do. No, it's not all I know how to do. I know how to be a businessman. I know how to wrestle. I know how to write a book. I'm a professor on this, on this. So you always got to keep reinventing yourself, because you never know. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in life. So you need to have as many skills and abilities just in case something happens, So don't ever let what you do define you. You define what you do. And that's one of the things that I think everybody needs to do, that once you define what you do, instead of what you do defining you, you actually find happiness and reality, and you're at peace with yourself, and you know that, hey, if I lose my job today as the executive director for the state of Oklahoma, well, I've got two businesses to fall on. I'm still teaching at the universities. My life isn't over, you know. So a lot of people, when they lose their job or something like that, they just curl up and die. But if you keep reinventing yourself and you define what you do, you're golden. So
I think this final message is actually one of the best, probably, final messages that I got during the recording of podcast. So thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to such an intelligent man today. So thank you. Good luck with your PhD. Good luck with the launch of your film. And I hope to hear next time about your new winner, about your new achievements, about your new goals. Okay?
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having us. And I'll just leave you with that and say thank you very much. It was an honor to get to meet you and be on your podcast. And I hope you'll eventually invite us back, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Keep on inspiring people. Goodbye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
This is a podcast sponsored by Combine.com. Grow and manage your Instagram safely and organically with Combine Growth and Combine Scheduler. Instagram promotion is easy. Combine.com.